Have you seen this? Of course you didn't. It was on Quibi.
Have you seen this?
The world's only podcast about obscure, overlooked, and misbegotten media.
All discussions will be spoiler heavy.
You have been warned. Oh, okay.
You're recording, I hope.
Yeah, I've been recording for... I've got 13 minutes of shit.
Nah, that's fine. Cut it.
Yeah. I got 13 minutes of shit on the TV to choose from.
Isn't that a song lyric?
Yeah, I'm bastardizing one of the lines from The Wall.
Oh, yeah, okay. God damn it. I was like, God, what is that from?
Yeah.
I know that's, like, from something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm podcasting, but there ain't nobody home. Yeah.
Well, today we've got
TV
50
to choose
states of
from.
shit. Except it's not. It's 9 states.
Right. Yeah. The 3/4 of a baker's dozen of states.
I don't know. Like, this wasn't that bad. It just had the misfortune to be on kind of a bad platform.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But
all right, thanks for tuning in.
and cut. No, before
Right.
Before we get to the meat of the matter, I want to shout out
Yeah, let's get to the potatoes.
Yes, I want to shout out some folks. The first shout out goes to Sicko Vision on Twitch. This is essentially a stream of the kind of weird shit that we talk about on this show.
You're going to make me buy another TV if you keep shouting all these streaming services at me.
And that was how Tim got addicted to Sicko Vision. This is Tim just sitting, like, in his little apartment, like, surrounded by Legos, and he's got the wall of TV screens, like, Ozymandias.
I got a TV on
Watchmen.
every wall. Yeah.
Yeah. He's got Bubastis, but she's made out of Legos.
Hey.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool, wouldn't it? You should make
Yeah,
that.
no one's done that. Yeah.
You should make a Bubastis. You already made me a Unikitty. It's just going up to a slightly larger kitty. But,
Right.
Anyway, Sicko Vision. You can check them out on Twitch, and they play all kinds of weird shit. And in fact, they even had an entire lineup one day that was all inspired by the show. I am not kidding. When I saw this,
wow.
I of course retweeted it, and I had a little moment because I was like, oh my God, somebody's actually, listening and paying attention. They even screened Romeo and Romeo.
Man.
Yeah.
I'm sure that got them like a copyright strike or something.
Well, no, I'm sure they got like tons of viewers for the hard gay sex.
Right, yeah. Well, there is literal gay sex in that portrayed in that movie.
Yes. I would like to remind the audience, people who are tuning into the late date and haven't been with us since the early days, Romeo and Romeo is a movie in which you see the director's erect penis.
And I mean, what more could you ask for, really?
Exactly. Do you get that from fucking Stanley Kubrick or, I don't know, Ryan Johnson?
This is the real Johnson.
I actually don't know if Ryan Johnson has put his penis in a movie. Maybe Karina Longworth knows.
Yeah, you're right.
Anyway, the second shout out goes to...
I can't believe that, like, someone made a show based off of movies that we've covered. Like, I feel like an influencer, which I guess I should go hang myself now.
Well, you're only influencing about 5 people, so I wouldn't
That's
feel
too
bad
many.
about it.
That's like 6 too many.
Our malign influence continues.
Right, yeah.
To that end, I also would like to shout out the very kind folks from the Worst of All Possible Worlds podcast, who are now sponsoring us over at our Patreon. That's patreon.com/haveyouseentthis. And real heads know that we just did a bonus episode with them about a weird fucking 1967 British movie where Roddy McDowall finds a golem. You don't want to miss that one.
Like you do. Yeah, and I've been listening to their show, and I'm gonna steal a lot of their jokes and observations. I think that they have some great content that is, well, I'm not gonna turn up my nose at using it on our show.
They're gonna be so glad they reached out.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, shouts out to
thanks.
Josh and Brian. Josh, thank you for getting in touch and getting that episode set up. And we, since this is the free episode, everyone listening, like, you're not going to want to miss that one. We had a lot of fun. It was
that was a good time.
Very funny episode with jokes of flying, and the movie itself is demented, so it was perfect for the show.
Yeah, Roddy McDowall's good in that.
Yeah.
We
love Roddy
Full
McDowall.
stop.
This is a pro Roddy podcast.
Right. Where else are you going to find that?
Exactly. But what are we talking about today, Tim?
On to new business. I hope that you're listening to this on your phone because thematically, we want to keep that consistent by mentioning the short-lived streaming service Quibi.
Short for Quick Bites.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just someone stubbed their toe. Yeah, but we were canvassing around, and I mean, I tend to watch whatever is just on at the time. And Roku is kind of bottom of the barrel, free content. But it turns out that there's a tier below that, and I had watched all of 50 States of Fright before realizing that this was bought by Roku along with Reno 911 and some other stuff that I'm not actually watching. In basically the fire sale when Quibi went under.
Yeah, Quibi lasted, I think, a grand total of 7 months.
Right.
And I think people were a little puzzled when
there have been
dropped.
abortions that lived longer than Quibi.
Yeah. This was a eminently deserved late-term abortions.
Right.
Legalize it, man. This company was...
Make your thalidomide baby joke, Jen.
I got a million of them.
Right.
This company was started or headed by Jeffrey Katzenberg of mostly Disney and DreamWorks fame.
Yeah.
And also Meg Whitman, who I think was CEO of Hewlett-Packard and ran it into the ground.
Yeah, she was a big eBay person.
Right, yeah. She was also head of eBay, and I guess was more successful with eBay, and I think also ran for political office.
Right.
I don't know if she I honestly don't remember if she was more or less successful than the Starbucks guy, but I don't remember them running anything in the government. So
Well, here's the thing. And I think that if we want to get into tech startup Hollywood inside baseball right off the bat, Meg Whitman, so she also she lost to Jerry Brown, but she ran for the governor of California.
Okay.
And she spent $144 million of her own money on this failed campaign. Meg Whitman is not good with money, I'm gonna say. Not only Quibi, but her campaign, like, both of these are kind of a lesson. I mean, in Hollywood, there's that, don't make a film with your own money. I feel like Meg Whitman is doing the, like, don't run a governor campaign with your own money. But, there but for the grace of God goes Meg.
There has to be, I mean, we know how millionaires and billionaires operate. There's always, like, some kind of, like, nest feathering go on there, so... for all I know, she like wrote it off or something and became
she
even
has
richer.
She has $1 billion and some change
Right.
to her name. So I mean, to her, what's 100-something million? Like, what does she give a shit?
Meanwhile,
but the problem
people are like dying on the streets of
Right,
Los
yeah.
Angeles and San Francisco because they don't fucking have homes.
Right. Well, the other thing too is, I mean, $1 million here, $1 million, $100 million there. Pretty soon you start talking real money. And that, I feel, is kind of the hubris of Quibi is, well, I mean, first, let's establish what Quibi is. Quibi was supposed to be short-form content that you watch on your phone, which we already have. But it was supposed to cost more, which is not a good value proposition for short-form content. I mean, if people... There are two ways that you can approach short-form content online, or even content in general. You can be the premium service, or you can be the cheap service. Like, you can be HBO, you can be like Netflix originals, you can be, Disney with its, cancerous tentacles and everything, or you can be TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, free shit. Like, none of that is premium content, but it also doesn't cost you anything. So you're like, the only thing I'm wasting is my time, which sounds like 90% of the internet right there. But the problem is that Quibi was trying to be both and neither of those things. It was trying to be short form snackable content, but it's premium content. It's like, we make gourmet fast food. That, I don't get that. It's
it's the Shake Shack of streaming content.
Right.
Except
yes,
you can get a meal at Shake Shack.
Right, yeah. Except, then it's like $30. But, like, it's like saying, we use only the freshest content in our Twinkies. Like, who gives a shit? So Quibi is
Dude,
kind
I
of...
could go for a gourmet Twinkie, though, and don't tell me that you wouldn't as well.
Well, it's funny. Not quite the same story, but I was in downtown LA back before the pandemic, and I was feeling... I was on my day off or whatever. I was feeling pretty good. I went to the library, had a great time. Then I went to one of the fancy donut places that are downtown. And, they have all these crazy flavors, things that you don't normally associate with donuts. And I got a peanut butter and jelly donut. I'm like, that seems fun. That's different. And I got it. And it perfectly replicated the taste of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, which is not something worth emulating. Like... At the end of it, I'm like, I could have made this shit at home. This tastes exactly like just some bog standard, half-assed, peanut butter and jelly on white bread sandwich that, like, your mom made when you were a kid and you had no sense of refined taste. But I still paid, $4 for it.
Yeah.
And at the end, I'm like, what the fuck was I doing? That was a terrible idea. So that, in a way, is Quibi, where you have just... You're paying for the privilege of having, like, disposable garbage content, but it's nicer. It's neither of these things, and that's really what gives me a headache when I try and think about it.
Yeah, and I think surely it must enrage entertainment executives that they can't quite grab and bottle that lightning, which is stuff like Vine and TikTok.
Well, the problem with that is that it is just slush. It is garbage. There's a deluge of this shit coming out because influencers will make it for free. You don't have to pay them.
Well, the reason that I evoked Vine in particular, maybe less so TikTok, because we all know how pernicious some of the content on TikTok is, but I remember when Vine was a thing, it was like a big deal that, like, how do we monetize this? And it was true. It was just people kind of like uploading their own things. And there were certain Vines that went viral that have become kind of embedded in the culture. Like, to this day, I still, whenever I see watermelon, I still say watermelon,
Right.
And stuff like that. And a lot of these short videos were, like, really fucking funny and inventive and had, like, good gags, but but how do we sell this? It's not it's not good enough that this is just people's, like, unique and spontaneous creativity made on a shoestring. It's like, yeah, but how can we sell it? Because everything has to be monetized, and they couldn't monetize Vine, and so Vine went away. And I think the second shot at it has been TikTok, and that's been a little more of a mixed bag, because just today I sent Tim a video from a Twitter account called Chaos TikTok with TikToks, which aggregates, like, some of the weirdest shit that you can find on there. And it's very funny, but it's uncontrolled. It's not, you can't go to...
Yeah, you can't be like, give me 6 of these by the end of the week.
Yeah, you can't go to Sony and be like, okay, I got your series idea. It's a dog that is trying really hard to take a shit. Right. And so it's a long-ass fart.
Well, this is... And speaking of wet farts, this is something that I encountered too when I was
shitting.
going around. Yeah, no, when I was pitching what would Jesus do, which is a crazy thing to say, but yeah, I pitched it to Fox Animation at some point. Like I literally was in the room with like my cutouts and standees and tie-dye T-shirt and everything. I was pitching what would Jesus do, but there was a mogul who was a friend of mine, and this was 20 years ago, so I don't remember his name. I'd have to look it up. But one of the things that, because I put it in front of him, and I'm like, yeah, so what do you think? And his advice to me was, because what would Jesus do was like, it's like 90 seconds. Like I think it started with like a cryptomnesia of like a Robert Smigel bit or something, but then it turned into its own thing, which is good. But the thing that he said to me is just like, you have to write these as characters, because otherwise you're like, you get 30 seconds in and you're like staring at the ceiling being like, I gotta think of a joke. And like, that was kind of the way that the series went, the series of short cartoons, because it was very one note. It was Jesus shows up, he's misrepresented, and then a police officer comes to arrest him. Yeah, and he just fucks off, which is a great one note gag, and it's perfect for it was perfect at the time when what people saw most online were like flash animated cartoons. Like this was that. So. But the advice to me is like, if you want to be able to stretch this out, you can't just have it be like gag after gag, where it's like just tell a joke, just tell a joke, just tell a joke.
Let's give Jesus a friend, say Judas.
Yeah, like he hangs out with 12 guys, but like one of them's a jerk, and he's got like a slutty friend, and like she's always cracking jokes. So yeah, like there's something to it, but it's like you have to make the comedy based on the characters. Is the point that I'm not illustrating well. So you can't just have it be just here's a bunch of gags, I don't know, whatever, but you make it intrinsic to the characters that you're watching, and then it starts to hold together better, rather than just being like, I don't know, tell a joke. And that, I feel, is the difference between short and long form content, because a lot of the stuff that you're seeing on whether it's TikTok or whether it's Vine or whether it's YouTube, that is like one-off. That is lightning striking in just such a way. Like, Jen, are you going to tune into Water Malone, the series? Like, no. But it is a thing that it's funny. It's, just some random thing that you and your friends experience, and you can call back to them and be like, oh, yeah, that's funny that one time. Well, but I mean, what better way to...
But what ends up happening is that you get like kind of like aggregators, like early on, like Tosh.0 or Ridiculousness, which has now pretty much swallowed MTV. It's like all they play.
Right. Yeah. But it's difficult for that to then transition, because otherwise you're going to get like we need only point to the novelty Twitter account Shit My Dad Says to see how this stuff does not make the leap from short to long form content. Mm-hmm. Like, it is forever in that, like, it is that, I don't know, it's the difference between like stand-up versus vaudeville, I want to say. Like, it isn't sustaining beyond it just being a series of jokes. Like, when you run out of jokes, you're like, okay, well, that's my set, I'm leaving. Versus it being more like, I don't know, if you're a stand-up, like, you try to cultivate a particular like point of view, like a particular narrative. That way, people know what they're getting when they come see you, rather than being like, hey, this guy tells jokes, I can tell his jokes around the water cooler at work.
You know nothing of the art of vaudeville.
I guess not. Well, it's because, where are all the vaudeville TikToks? I want to see those. But yeah, I mean, that would be my approximation, is this like free short form content is vaudeville, and it doesn't have any it is unable to achieve anything greater than that. And Quibi, to like kind of try to be that while not being vaudeville, but it doesn't mesh.
I feel like Quibi is more kind of trying to put the square peg in the round hole, where it's not enough to just let people, put up their funny videos online. It's like, how can we sell this to people? So to that end, let's take a thing that we understand, which is
producing
broadcast
premium content.
Yeah, broadcast content, TV shows or short films or features or whatever, and we're going to try to shoehorn that in to this short format, because the whole pitch with Quibi was it was supposed to be the kind of thing that oh shit, I just realized. God damn it. You know how everyone loves to talk about liminal spaces?
Okay.
It's video for liminal spaces.
All right.
Like, the way that I've seen Quibi content described is like, oh, you watch it while you're in line for a coffee.
You absolutely do not do that.
Yeah, like, I mean, and it's funny because pretty much the universal reaction to Quibi was slight
Why would
confusion.
I do that?
Yeah, like people were like, "What?"
Right. Yeah, and
this was, but and
it is two things that don't fit together.
The people who started this were like really fucking enthusiastic about it, and I've seen it suggested that it's somewhat emblematic of them being really out of touch with how people actually spend their time. And I mean, and these are like, I mean, how old are Meg Whitman and Jeffrey Katzenberg? And it's a really boomer-ass thing to be like, hey, I don't know, like, the kids are on their phones all the time. They got to be doing something.
Right. Well, as I wanted to explain earlier, it is two different business models where you're like, how do you monetize that? How do you make money out of that? It is two different things. The existing entertainment industry, it makes its money by selling a product, by selling subscriptions. But to anyone who's been on social media for more than a year, the difference with social media is that you are the product. Like, you are the audience being sold. So they're trying to say, we're going to pay for premium content, and then you as the viewer pay to consume it, versus TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, where the content itself is just a way to attract the audience, and then the audience is the thing that is there to be sold ads. Like, It's there for advertising. So if you ask, like, oh, how do we monetize Vine? It is, you put some Vines in, and then you mix the good content with the shit, which is advertising that you can't get around, and that's how you make your money. Rather than be like, how do I find the next video of a cat getting brushed with a toothbrush and monetize that?
Brushy.
Like, you can't. Yeah, you can't monetize that. And this is something that I see a lot in the tech space, is you aren't trying to monetize the thing, you're trying to monetize like the platform. Like, you monetize the system. You don't want to be like, oh, I made this one great show, and I'm done. The show's the thing, and I'll just make money, for however long into the future. It's like, no, you make a platform where it's like a bunch of other idiots make a show for free, and then you get the advertising when they show their show, and you don't have to pay anything other than the infrastructure costs.
Yeah, which, to put it in a very glib and oversimplified way, is kind of the way that YouTube works. It's kind of the way... I know very little about TikTok, but they've managed to make some money off of it. So there it is.
Right.
But definitely
yeah,
YouTube.
Yeah, it is attracting an audience to be advertised to rather than creating content to be sold. On those all those platforms, you're the rubes creating the content for free, I might add, just giving it away. I mean, can you imagine, like, if you did a podcast and you just gave it away to people?
Why, it would be like treating the material as worthless.
Right. It's just, $ content. It is just, it's grist for the mill. We just keep crapping out episodes so we stay afloat. Right, yeah, like the dog that you sent. You know how it is. Right.
I guess I should link the dog video.
Right, yeah. So so it is two different ideas. The Hollywood idea that you're selling content to viewers versus the Silicon Valley idea, which is you're selling users, you're selling advertising to display in front of users for nothing. It's going two different directions, and the problem is that Quibi is trying to put the business model of one thing with the kind of distribution model of the other thing, and it didn't fit. For one, And for the other is that their selling point where it's like, oh, you watch 5 minutes of a TV show while you're standing in line for for a coffee or getting groceries or something. Absolutely no one does that. And the reason for that is because you can't create... There's too much context switching involved there. You can't stop and get engrossed in an affecting professional media property while you're, taking a shit or something. It is people are watching these videos, like these Vines or TikToks or whatever, because they're just this ephemera. It is this thing that you watch and you're like, oh, okay. And then it goes away. You aren't trying to understand the, nuances of characters and motivations. You aren't appreciating good camera work while you're waiting for your name to be called at Starbucks. This is very trite, simplistic content, and it can never arise to that because of the way that it is consumed. It is consumed in just an indifferent manner. I'm just getting back to the fast food analogy. It's what is the best, greatest potato chip? It's still a potato chip. I don't care how you dress it up.
What if it's got sour cream and onion?
Well, then it would be a sour cream and onion chip, and you just eat it, and you're like, okay, on to the next one.
And you watch the guy wipe out on his ATV, and you laugh, and you move to the next video.
And then you eat another one, snackable content. No one sits down to a plate of potato chips for dinner except me. Because that's pathological, that's sick. That is a poor media diet, and it will kill you. At least on the inside.
I'm learning a lot about Tim tonight.
Right, yeah, I think we all are.
I already knew all this stuff anyway, but you've got a wild hair tonight.
No, I mean, really, because, it is so wrong-headed, and it's something that I feel like I understand enough. I haven't implemented it correctly in practice, but I understand the principles that Quibi doesn't. I mean, I mentioned, what would Jesus do, and the lesson learned from that, and that was pretty straightforward. That was just, each of those episodes was, 40 seconds to, 90, and, that was it.
You were a little bit ahead of your time.
Yeah.
Because I remember that you were doing, Adult Swim type content before Adult Swim.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just the one thing. And then, since we're going down my greatest hits, I mean, you can just, check my body of work on the Internet Movie Database. But not only that, but when I did Emergency 411, which was, bad advice for unlikely situations, that was a short-lived animated series that did get some play. It was on Crackle. It was in an animation festival.
It was very funny.
It was very funny, yeah. And I think that he's a great comedic voice and very unique and influential. But I guess as befitting his name, Mike Judge was one of the judges for this contest that I originally submitted to, that I had created this content for, and he went all of his handlers were like, you have to pick this Emergency 411. It is perfect for what we're looking for. It is it's short, it's iconic, it's a series, it has series potential. You can do more with it. And, to this day, fucking Mike Judge, he picked the snowman video instead.
What was the snowman video?
It was a snowman who swaps the two balls of his body so he doesn't look like a schlub, and instead he looks like he works out. And then that ends.
Was that a sequel to the beloved animated cartoon, The Snowman?
No, it was just a short that
Walking
someone did.
In the air.
Someone did submit it to a festival, and they won. And I'm like, all right, well, fuck me, I guess.
So what happened to that person?
I don't know, and it doesn't matter. But anyway, but yeah, the thing is,
I assume that they're head of content at Netflix or something.
Maybe. I mean, actually, the guy, shoot, I don't remember his name either, because it doesn't matter where I am in my life right now, which is a shame. But yeah, he produces Lego Masters now, so that guy definitely knew what was up.
Huh.
But yeah, he, introduced me to some other people. I played at a festival in Toronto, won some award there. But anyway, the point is that I got it. And I even explained when I got interviewed about it, where I'm like, the point of this mobile content, and keep in mind, this is like literally mobile content. This is pre-iPhone. God, I'm telling my war stories. Sorry.
Wow. There's, I do have a photo of Tim as the head of the line in front of the Apple Store for the first generation iPhone.
Right. Yeah. So this would have been like 2006 or 2005 or something. But it was when like you would watch, MP4s on your flip phone or on your BlackBerry. And I'm like, it's simple enough. Like it keeps the color palette down. It's iconic. It's easily recognizable. And it is short. And what I said is, just get in and get out. Get in, say your piece, get out. Don't waste the listener's time. Like, you're a podcast and you can just yammer on and not make your point and restate things over and over again. But this is like, it was just be quick. Like, get in, get out, say your piece, go. And if you can just keep doing that, if you have a solid brand and if you just do that over and over again, you can. I stopped it because I'm like, well, I'm not getting any money from this. And, I got a job waiting, so I ended up doing that. And that's been the fucking tragedy of my life. But yeah, that was one point where I understood what the idea was. And a lot of the people who were judging in this animation festival understood it as well. Mike Judge disagreed, and, that's the sliding doors moment of my adult life.
Well, now I really want to know what happened to the fucking snowman guy.
I don't know.
Like, should we go beat his ass or something?
Maybe we should tell Mike Judge, maybe you aren't a good judge of comedy. I'm sure he's very nice in person.
No, we love Mike Judge. Beavis and
I
Butthead,
know.
King of the Hill, Office Space.
Yeah. Silicon Valley, yeah, all of it. It's great, but I mean, I'm just like, well, I guess I didn't make a good enough impression to him.
Oh my
sucks.
God, that's how.
What?
This is how we take the podcast to the big time. Big time is that we start beef with Mike Judge.
I'm pretty sure he would not reciprocate. He's too nice.
I don't know. There's got to be a way to get to him. If you know
Maybe.
any of Mike Judge's weaknesses, please email us info@haveyouseen.us.
Better yet, if you
We're
know
through
the social
fucking
security
around.
number. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that's my tragic brush with Mike Judge. So that was Emergency 4-in-1. Then Assignment Unexplained. Same thing. Where I basically did the Quibi model.
You're just gonna link all your old web series.
I am. No, I am engaged in this stuff. Like, I know what I'm talking about.
No, I mean it's fine, but do you want me to link all this stuff?
Yeah, go for it. It would
Okay.
be nice if I broke 1,000 views on some of these fucking videos. Because what I did was I was pursuing that same bite-sized content notion where I took basically a half-hour comedy series. It was a parody of ghost hunting shows, which the unfortunate thing is that friend of the show, Darren, when I was showing him, basically the inspirational content, he's like, I don't know if you need to parody this. I was like, well, there's your answer.
Did you know that Eli Roth has a paranormal show now?
Great. I'm happy for him.
I assume it's called I Was Raped by a Ghost or something like that.
I'm going to rape that fucking ghost. Right. So, yeah, so Assignment Unexplained. It was a half-hour comedy. It was basically Reno 911, but for paranormal investigators.
It was funny. I worked on it.
Yeah, you did work on it. And it was funny despite everything. So the other point that I want to make, too, about these two industry philosophies that are at odds is that if you start from the tech side of things, what you want, and I saw this from I'm just, Cassandra, basically. Like, in all these situations, I knew what I was doing, but still I was a tree that fell in the forest. So, no one learned any of my lessons. No one gave a crap. But what I saw as the Quibi problem is that in the tech world, a lot of the time, what you're going to get when startups start is you're getting an MVP. You're getting a minimum viable product. You're getting something that barely fucking works. Something that just is enough for you to start making money with that. And the problem is, the follow to that is what I do for a living, which is cleaning up other people's messes, where it's like, okay, we got this thing that works and it's a horrible messes spaghetti code and it's a huge ordeal to try to maintain. We want to throw that out and replace it and do it right. But the risk is you don't ever want to like break that money machine, because without that thing working, you don't have an income, and suddenly you're paying people to do a bunch of shit and you don't have any way to pay for it. So a lot of the time, and this is why you have such, reluctant managers, is because no one wants to be the one responsible for breaking, the moneymaker. So a lot of the time, the job is just to clean up these messes. But the flip side of that is when people try to do it right, those are the places that fail. And this is the, Silicon Valley wisdom that was passed on to me, because they're the people who took too long trying to do things the correct way, rather than just being like, hey, let's just get something going. Let's just get something that's close enough to working. Let's just do it right. And if the examples that I point to are ones that had a minimum viable product and use that as a springboard to then advance into whatever form they took, those are the lessons you can take away from this. I mean, Netflix didn't start by producing original content. They did mail order DVDs. And then that was profitable enough that they had a little extra money that they can then start going into a streaming service. And that was profitable enough that they could grow from there. So it's step by step that you're building these things. Same thing with, if you think like, Apple has $1 trillion hardware business. Like this, Apple TV Plus, which we have lambasted in previous episodes. Thank you very much.
Correctly.
Correctly. The Academy Award winning Apple TV Plus service is garbage. But I mean, that's just a dalliance. Like, they make more money from dongles than they do from their Apple TV subscriptions. I mean, they'll give you 3 months of it for free, just because, like,
hell, they gave me a year for free.
Right, yeah, because it's just like, well, who gives a shit what Apple is making? And yet, they won an award because they have plenty of other money.
Bought a film that was well regarded at Sundance.
Right. That's all there is to it. They spent money and they won the award. Great, good for them.
That's how the Oscars work.
Right, yeah. Oh, yeah, we probably should have said that. But yeah, like, they have a bunch of money coming in. They can just dick around with this other thing. Like, Apple isn't going to live or die based on what their numbers are from Apple TV Plus. Same with, like, YouTube. YouTube is Google. Fucking Google. They got money coming out their ass. Like, they can do whatever they want with YouTube. The only way that they can, that YouTube can even be sustained is if there's a multi-billion-dollar company that can bankroll it. Like, you can't make another YouTube because it is not profitable to host and stream that much video content, especially with just a deluge of user-generated content coming in.
It's very profitable to stoke hate speech, though.
Right, yeah, exactly. That's how you boost engagement. That's how you sell more advertising, which is Google's bread and butter. TikTok, that's what is that underwritten by China? Like, they're fine. They'll let that keep working. In the same way that, like, Disneyland is a loss leader for Disney. Like, Disney has tons of money, coming in from other places that they're like, yeah, we just do this because it gets people interested in our other shit. It is a showroom, for other content that they then fleece you for. So the difference is Quibi was none of these things. Quibi lived or died by its subscriber count and its income from subscriptions. And the problem was it started off at, like third base or whatever. It started off like 3 steps in. It didn't start off as Vine or as, Instagram or whatever. It didn't start as like, here's a little thing that we do. We're going to make some shows. It started off as, we are the next multimedia platform for premium snackable content. And they couldn't, to borrow a term from, my bête noire Mike Judge's Silicon Valley, they only had so much runway, before their venture could take off. And they didn't make it because it was either everyone is on board with short form premium content only on your phone for $5 a month. Never mind that you can pay twice that and you can get catalogs of movies and everything else from Netflix. But that was their business model. And if that didn't work in 9 months, then, they shut down. It's because they tried to grab too much all at once. And that was not a viable business model. It was them taking a Hollywood model and trying to apply it to tech, and it just didn't work. Never mind that people didn't want to watch TV shows on their phone, because your phone is where you watch, people falling off their bikes and, dogs farting and, cats attacking kids.
Which is
funny.
Yeah,
but you don't want like a 3-act structure with A-list celebrities on it. Or even B-list, like, say, director Sam Raimi, who directed the premiere episode of 50 States of Fright, had one season, and it is still in that. It is free on Roku, on the original Quibi format of 5 to 8 minute episodes. And the unfortunate thing is that I would have loved to see 50 states of this, but we got 9 states of Fright. And they're not even good states either. They're like Minnesota and Iowa.
Yeah, I can talk now.
Not so fast, Jen.
I feel like Mike. This, as Tim said, was purchased. This series, as well as a bunch of other Quibi content, was purchased for pennies on the dollar by Roku. As such, you can't actually watch it in the quote-unquote format it was intended, which I kind of wanted to do, but quickly realized I can't actually watch it on my phone. Initially, when Quibi launched, they made a big deal about their, I forget what they called it, like turnkey or turnstile or something like that. You could watch in portrait mode, or you could turn your phone and watch in landscape. So everything was shot with that in mind. Now, I would love to tell you like what, if anything, this added to this particular series, but I can't tell you. I'd watch the whole thing in landscape because I watched it on the Roku channel. So right there is kind of it is David Lynch being like, you're not watching a fucking movie. If you aren't watching Quibi content on the phone as it was intended, you're not getting the full experience, Jen. Yeah, so we're gonna give you a slightly adulterated version. I guess it's not like this was. I mean, this is really not comparable to downloading Lawrence of Arabia and like watching it on your video iPod.
I remember when Netflix had an app, or no, I think it's even when Netflix was just had a mobile site and you could watch videos on that. I remember watching Barry Lyndon on my phone. Just like, this is so wrong.
Just as Kubrick intended.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we're not getting the pure experience, but as it is, it doesn't really matter. I'm sorry that we can't tell you guys like what the what the phone turning added, if anything, to the content, because as it is, the content is fairly light.
Right. You know what we should do?
Huh?
If we were like shitty influencer types, I'm not saying we aren't, we should review our next movie by watching it on our phones, like while waiting in line, and just see what we even get out of it.
Yeah, let's watch Abel Gantz's Napoleon on our phones. Or maybe How the West Was Won, the Cinerama version. Yeah.
Well, I'll get 2 more phones and I'll watch it in whatever the original aspect ratio.
You had 3 iPhones lined up to watch How the West Was Won, and I know you have 3 iPhones handy.
You're damn right I do. None of them made within the last decade.
Mm-hmm. But like I was saying, the content is, because of the very nature of the limitations imposed by the platform, is kind of like watching the best shorts at the film festival at the HorrorCon.
Yeah.
Because, that was really how I felt watching this stuff. And Sam Raimi aside, he allowed himself the plum #1 position. He directed the first episode. Most of these, while they have plenty of stars, they were handed off to up-and-coming horror directors. Like, the only way that you would know these names is if you watch shudder the way that Tim watches B-movie TV, like 16 hours a day.
Right, yeah, and I'm ashamed to say that I do not recognize those names, although when they show up, I'm like, I know I should know that this is a person.
I mean...
But I do not know who this person is.
Like, I will say that, so these... All of these directors did, like, okay work. Some of them I would like to check up on. I think that maybe the biggest name besides... Sam Raimi would be the guys who wrote and directed... the guys who wrote A Quiet Place. They did the Iowa segment. Right.
And the Iowa segment is probably my favorite, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I think that one ended up working the best. The final segment, which was fine, as, like, all of the content we're talking about tonight is fine, was written and directed by someone named Kate Devaney, who most of her credits appeared to be in the art department because she was a storyboard artist for a long time, which I will admit, as a sometimes storyboard artist myself, intrigued me, and I would like to see more of her work. So to that end, I followed her on LinkedIn.
Yeah? Did you, you message her? Or?
No, I just followed her. I don't think, like most of us, I don't think she sits around looking at LinkedIn. Because I think that the only people who like...
Speak for yourself.
...look at LinkedIn on a daily basis are psychopaths.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're either looking for a job or you're just a type
pod
A
people.
Psychopath.
Right. Yeah. The only people who post or reblog content on LinkedIn are pod people. Like, they aren't normal. I mean, even on, like, Facebook, you're trying to curate some kind of life.
Right.
But... on LinkedIn, it'd be like, hey, my life is my work. It'd be like, you're a goddamn liar. No one cares about this shit.
Yeah, and that's why I can't... like, for me, like, I mean, Facebook was bad enough, which is why I'm not on Facebook anymore. But browsing LinkedIn, like, absolutely makes me want to fucking kill myself in, like, 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's like... yeah, no one actually believes any of this shit.
Ugh.
Like, if they did, you wouldn't have to pay people to do it.
Yeah.
So,
and then...
anyway, the nature of work.
And then the last time that I... logged into LinkedIn, I found someone that I knew was pushing their NFTs. So there's that.
Awesome.
So I logged out again. But as I was going to say, and it's interesting, like, because Tim got the bit between his teeth and said a lot that was relevant about kind of not just like Hollywood executive mindset, but kind of like Silicon Valley psycho mindset. And
well, they're two incompatible psychoses.
Yeah, but I mean, they're all kind of they're subspecies of the same, like, kind of malignant tribe, which is, C-suite executives. But the point that I'm making is that the whole time I was watching this, I was kind of also thinking about the ugly demise of Quibi and how it became almost a laughingstock on social media because people were so confounded by the very idea of Quibi. But it reminded me of, darker times in my life when I had a quote-unquote real job, and without going into detail, I have been in boardrooms with actual billionaires and heard that...
Yeah, you've worked for Satan himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I've heard the things that these people say, and you're just like, these people might as well be space aliens. Like, there is nothing relatable about these people whatsoever. Just, like, nothing they say, like, reveals, like, any common ground that you can find with them. And that is the kind of mind that gave us Quibi. And the creative people working on this series tried their very best within the format. And they did okay, but it still feels like HorrorCon Film Festival stuff. Because by the very nature of Quibi's limitations, to go back to Tim's junk food analogy, I mean, it's why you can't make a meal out of potato chips, even if they're like the premium kind in the fancy bag. Like
Yeah, you can't add more to make it better.
Yeah, you're hungry half an hour or an hour later. Like there's that gnawing feeling in your stomach. And I kind of felt it was like a gnawing feeling in my brain watching these where it was like, oh, that's a good premise. And like, this actor is good, or like that's a good kill, or like that's an interesting bit. But thematically,
wasn't shoved into
thematically there's nothing.
Right. The other thing too that speaking of, to stick the landing of my earlier diatribe about these two incompatible business models from two CEO brained people, is that in the stories about Quibi, it is Meg Whitman, who is a tech person, and Jeffrey Katzenberg, who is a Hollywood person, who themselves did not get along as the leadership of Quibi. Like, you've got your microcosm of the Quibi dysfunction right there with the two CEOs.
Oh, is that the case? That I did not know.
Yeah, well, I mean, whether they did or didn't, you've got two co-CEOs from different backgrounds trying to like steer a ship in two incompatible directions, trying to come up with something that just like, it's like I'm trying to make the perfect pet by crossbreeding a dog and a cat. It's like that's not going to work. You're going to get
Tim, it was a show and it was called Cat Dog.
Oh right, yeah, my mistake. Well, outside of Cat Dog, I'll grant you that. But outside of Cat Dog, that's just a thing that isn't going to exist, and it isn't going to be healthy because it is one thing or the other. But you had a tech CEO and a Hollywood CEO trying to do something that was incompatible with the other one's general idea of doing things, and on top of that, it's two boomers trying to make millennial content, which isn't going to work. But enough about Quibi. We should really discuss episode 5 in our 9-part ongoing series about folk horror by discussing 50 States of Fright, which is fucking folk horror.
Yeah, I groaned. I actually groaned aloud when I was watching the first episode, because I could just picture myself saying, "Hey Tim, you know what this is? You know what this is, right?
Yeah.
It's your favorite genre. Right. It's your favorite subgenre."
In the 9 episodes that we've covered folk horror in already, I'm chagrined that it has not come up until now. It is just like forehead slappingly obvious. All the shit that we covered in the Shudder documentary, and all the things with whatever having Mike on so he can bullshit about whatever Mike likes, that was all secondary. We should have been talking about 50 States of Fright this entire goddamn time.
Well,
I don't believe it.
As was established by that particular documentary from Shudder about folk horror, everything is folk horror.
Everything,
so
yeah.
why worry about it? I mean,
if it takes place outside and isn't about Christianity, it's folk horror.
Yeah, and of course we're talking about the first episode of 50 States of Fright, which is called The Golden Arm. And if you look up The Golden Arm...
If you've ever been around a campfire, you know the story of The Golden Arm.
Right, and if you look it up on the internet machine, you get two sorts of results. You get discourse on folklore, or you get... articles,
Midnight Pals.
Or you get articles about how a segment of this first episode went viral because it was so off the chain. And
right.
It's funny because at the time, I don't think I realized that this was Sam Raimi. And it does illustrate how unfair it can be to pull something out of its context and just show it on its own, because if
you mean a movie can't stand by like one scene alone shown on your fucking phone? Maybe that's the tragedy of Quibi.
I mean, that's kind of why like all of the best and most emotional moments from movies, like taken from their context and shown, say, on the Academy Awards telecast, they look really like histrionic and dumb because
right. You had me at hello.
Yeah, there's no
perfect example.
Yeah, there's no build to this person like having a meltdown or sobbing or dissolving in grief.
Right, yeah. It's like, oh, Rosebud, what do I care if someone's burning a sled? Big fucking deal.
Yeah, and in much the same way, the clip that went viral from the Golden Arm made... I mean, I thought I was watching some kind of like Tim and Eric thing.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you weren't laughing. That's the important thing.
No, it was just like, what is this? What is the intended tone? And, people were just like, haha, look how fucking stupid this is. Now, if you watch the 3 segments, which comprise this first episode, 50 States of Fright, it's like, oh, it's a little bit camp, but it's very Sam Raimi. It's a pretty simple premise, like taken to its horrifying conclusion. And a line of dialogue like, bury me with my golden arm, makes sense in context.
Right, and it makes sense if you know the story. Like, if you're already on board with it because you sat around a campfire and you're like, oh yeah, the golden arm thing, you have it. That... Yeah, I'm already on board with what it's doing because I know... like the lore, or I know the legend, that goes with this. So it skates by on that credibility, which is a whole other thing. Like if you'll allow me another 40 minutes, I can talk about that. Because
we're making our own folk horror documentary.
Right. Yeah.
And it's going to be 6 hours long.
Yeah, look, I'm just saying that there's a problem brewing in this country that we need to address.
And if you don't like it, you're actually being like really toxic and making it hard for us to continue our important work.
Right, yeah. No, see, because in context like that, and it's funny because I just put it on being like, yeah, 50 states, whatever, I'm sure this is garbage. Then by the time I get to the 3rd episode or the 3rd act in a normal show, I'm like, this is really engaging.
Yeah.
And I'm like scared and interested by this. I think this is great. I wonder who made this. And it's like, oh, of course, Sam fucking Raimi.
Yeah, and he was executive.
Like, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he was executive producer on the entire series, which probably has a lot to do with the relative strength of the content because, barring 1 or 2 duds, these work relatively well as their little standalone narratives, in spite of not being very deep.
Yeah, because, I mean, even, like, the Golden Arm thing, I just know that as a campfire jump scare, but he injects pathos in it. It is about 2 people insecure in their own ways, just sort of getting in over their heads.
Yeah, and there's gore,
He found
too.
a way to justify it. Yeah, there's great gore in this. So, so that was what got me through the first episode, because a lot of the time I'll just be like, yeah, whatever, fine. And I think that the Golden Arm is a great one to lead with because it already has that cultural hook already baited, whatever the analogy is, because as a student of horror, not a very good student, but all the same, like, I know the Golden Arm story, so I'm like, okay, let's see you riff on this Golden Arm story. And for better or worse, the series leverages that because a lot of the time it's something that, it is that common complaint about, no one's making new movies anymore. It's always like reboots and remakes and expanded universe and shit like that. And it is the thing from... I go back to this again. I've done this before. The Red Letter Media's Star Trek, for 2009 review, and it's like people have a vague understanding of cultural signposts, and if you can make use of those, then you can just those provide enough of a hook to get people over the hill. If you allow me to mix my metaphors, to have them on board with whatever story you're telling. If the Golden Arm was about like a golden foot or something, like it wasn't, if it wasn't the same story, I probably would have laughed it off the same way the people, posting it on Twitter did, because it doesn't mean anything to me. And it is that much harder to get people invested in new characters because we're already saturated. Like, there's so much, it's hard to get to know any new people because we already know so many as it is. That it's extra work to be like, okay, why do I have to give a shit about this lady and her silver foot or something? But it was like, oh, it's the Tale of the Golden Arms. Like, I already know this one. I'm already on board. I'm strapped in. Let's go. So it is a canny decision on the producer's part of opening with the Golden Arm. And I can see if I was Sam Raimi, hell, that's the one I would take.
Yeah.
Because that's a strong way to start.
If you were Sam Raimi, you wouldn't be on a podcast talking about all your projects that went nowhere. Like, it would be like
real.
Crime Wave, and that would be it.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, the story has legs. Sorry.
I've just had the theme song from Man with the Golden Gun in my head all day.
Right, yeah. I gave a... I wrote an adventure for Traveler that is a riff on a David Bowie lyric, and anytime I look at the title of that game, I've got fucking Ziggy Stardust playing in my head for days, so whatever.
Timmy played Traveler.
Yeah! Yeah, I mean, the episode will already come out after Mayday, so you won't be able to play in my game of Xeno Paradise and the Hivers from Magma, but look for it in the Journal of the Traveler's Aid Society, Volume 11, I believe.
So if any superfan wants to make a Tim bingo card where the squares are things like Tim enumerates his failures, Tim mentions tabletop role-playing.
Tim mentions Traveler by name.
Yes, name checks Traveler.
Right. Yeah, Jen tries to hook me with Lego again.
Is mean to Jen.
That's free space.
That's a free space.
Yeah, you dumb bitch.
Moving
right,
away
so the
from,
Golden Arm. Yeah, the Golden Arm gets a chance to riff on something we already know, so that helps ease you into the series. And after that, I am on board with it. Yeah, minus a couple of duds.
Yeah, but, and which ones do you consider kind of the duds?
The ones I didn't take notes on.
Because the one that was basically like a riff on stuff you recognize from The Shining, I think was the biggest dud for me.
Okay. That one, I mean, I didn't think it was bad, even if it wasn't my favorite, because I did like that it was riffing on The Shining. It also had a bit of, Winchester Mystery House in there, which, Bay Area people know. I do like that the three influencers are just shitty people. They're just like so extra. I do like that it has Christina Ricci in it.
I did like Christina Ricci.
She's still cute, even at her old age of still younger than me.
No, she looks great, and she was very funny in this.
Yeah.
I just don't
funny and it's funny and just like creepy, which is great. It's Wednesday Addams growing up.
I don't know. It was kind of a weak ending. I didn't really get much of the story apart from it reminded me a lot of
you're just watching dicks get their comeuppance.
Sure, and that reminds me of the times that you text me while you're watching B-Movie TV and you're like, oh, this fucking movie that's on, I just can't wait for all these people to die, that kind of thing. And it kind of fits with kind of the essential reactionary quality of Quibi, where it's like, the kids on their phones, and here's an episode about the kids being on their phones and they don't have any respect and they just want to film all the time, and it didn't love it. The other one that I didn't think was that great was I don't know, the taxidermy one was all right.
I mean, I do like the twist in all these. I think that's fun.
Right.
The taxidermy, maybe you can say, okay, it's one note, because the taxidermy one is it is basically the preeminent, I don't know how you even get to be this thing, taxidermist is brought like a Bigfoot to taxidermy, basically.
Yeah, and it basically ends up mirroring
fucking
Boggy Creek 2.
A little, yeah. But then the thing
which is a
that
great reference.
Right, yeah. Well, it is by an Arkansas filmmaker, Charles B. Pierce, who we ourselves have celebrated on the show. a true indie auteur.
But this is from Oregon, the locus of white supremacy in the Pacific Northwest.
Right, yeah. And, Bigfoot only lives there because he doesn't have to pay sales tax. But yeah, the idea, though, like the horror
Bigfoot
in
is
it...
a sovereign citizen.
Right, yeah.
That fits.
Oh my God, yeah. I think, we got Bigfoot. So, yeah, the takeaway is he taxidermies a Bigfoot, and then the family member of the Bigfoot comes looking for it. Because if you're a sentient ape, and you see, like, your family member taxidermied, like stuffed and mounted, that's pretty fucking horrifying, and you probably want to rip the face off of the person who did it.
Yeah, and the eyes popping out was pretty funny.
Yeah, so put yourself in Bigfoot shoes and you're like, oh yeah, that's actually a really shitty thing to do. Like, if you were a deer, like, granted sentience, and you'd be like, oh yeah, my Uncle Dave, he got shot through the heart one day when he was just out minding his own business.
Shot through the heart, and you're to blame. You give taxidermy a bad name.
Right, exactly. Yeah, he was shot and his heart exploded and he died bleeding out on a nice spring day. But it's cool that you commemorated that by sawing his head off and hanging that up on your wall. No, good for you. Like, if you see from the animal's perspective, you're like, yeah, that's objectively horrifying. And of course, like at the end, they bring that theme home because the cool thing about all these stories is that they have like this folklorist framing device where it's the person telling the story, and they're interviewing a fellow taxidermist who turns out taxidermied the corpse of the guy who got killed by the Bigfoot. So it all comes back around. It's great.
Right.
And they do that to great effect in each of these stories. The folklore documentary framing story.
Yeah. They
like
do
that worked.
They do tend to lean kind of heavily on like the narrator kind of framing, which like I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did like in the Iowa segment, there's no one starting off telling the story to the camera. I like that it starts you in media res essentially with like a pretty upsetting opening.
Yeah, you get to know what this person's hang-ups are.
Exactly.
And how they are informing their present.
Plus it's got Ron Livingston.
Yeah! Speaking of another Mike Judge connection. Mm-hmm. Fucking A, man.
Damn. We'll get you beefing with Mike Judge somehow, Tim.
Two chicks at the same time. So one other thing, since we were talking about the folklorist framing device, that is used to great effect in 13 Steps to Hell, which I don't know where that takes place, but it's basically like
Washington.
An abandoned mine shaft. Yeah, it's an abandoned mine shaft, and you see like your worst nightmare in there, and the frame story is from the kid who saw the worst thing as an adult.
Played by Rory Culkin.
Right.
Which is
I also kind of neat.
Yeah, and I don't this was an okay segment. I don't maybe you can explain to me, cuz like the implication is kind of that he's been cursed to narrate a short horror film for all time. Right.
No, he's talking to like a stuffed animal.
Right, the stuffed animal which came out of the mine shaft, but that's kind of how it ends up feeling, because it starts again like a lot of these segments. It's like someone addressing the camera.
Right. It's fine because it seems like all the ones that you've seen before, because you saw the one about the biggest ball of twine where you got Karen Allen, who you may remember from Indiana Jones. You got her narrating.
Yeah, like she's being interviewed by Dateline or something.
Yeah, and then you have the other one about Grey Cloud Island, and you have the other guy being interviewed in a police interrogation room, and then eventually you end up at 13 Steps to Hell, and that is where you've already had established the folklorist framing device. So then you're like, oh, okay, so it's the guy talking to the camera crew. But no, it's the guy holed up in his room who's crazy talking to himself. So yeah, it perfectly fits subverting expectations, where it's like, okay, this is another framing device where we're hearing the person who survived this encounter, but no, it's one of the casualties that you're talking to.
And I guess I can't really malign the framing. This is something which I would have to write up to like a more of a personal preference than anything else. So I can't really say like, oh, like this failed because of this.
Right, yeah, you can appreciate it but not like it. I mean, there's plenty of stuff you send me where I feel that way.
I mean, yeah, that's my point, essentially.
Right.
Like,
yeah, I didn't care for like the actual content of the episode, but I feel like the turn at the end
which
was inspired. The 13 Steps to Hell.
Oh, right. And kind of funny tidbit that I don't think anyone will really care about, but in 13 Steps to Hell, the young female lead was also in the absolutely awful Netflix series Haunting of Hill House, playing the younger version of Elizabeth Reeser's character. And it turns out that Elizabeth Reeser is the female lead of the final episode of 50 States of Fright.
No, it all comes back around.
Yeah, so that's your funny little bit of
there you go.
trivia that could go on IMDb, and 25 people could mark it as not interesting or whatever.
That'd be perfect. Yeah, thank you. So the framing device, I do like how they mess with it, because the golden arm, it is played straight. It is one of the guys from the town being like, here's the story of the golden arm, and here's all the reasons why we don't just dig up this, $40,000 golden arm that this guy made, or however much. But yeah, then they flip that around with the Ball of Twine episode, where it is Karen Allen as the small town sheriff, and she's narrating the events, and she's describing them. It's like, oh, this is your version. Like, it is technically true. Like we mentioned in the earlier episode, it is precise but not accurate. It is saying, oh yeah, she came here, and she found her daughter, and she was right where she left her, right at the Ball of Twine, just leaving out all the details of the story about why it's horrifying. But then she's like, yeah, and then the two of them got in their car and left. The end.
Right.
Yeah, so she's telling the story truthfully to her point of view, leaving out all the horrible, malign things that happened.
I feel like this, maybe this is more the kind of content that would go over better with Tim, because it is very much in his wheelhouse, being basically another version of the horror anthology.
Yeah. I mean, this wouldn't be out of place on Shudder either.
Yeah.
In fact, I find it a little refreshing, because I think a lot of content is like, it is for Shudder heads. It is more kind of genre chasing, where it's like, look, you already know all this stuff, so we're just going to play the hits.
Sure.
But it kind of becomes a little insular. It's kind of interbreeding with itself.
Yeah, which I think
feel
is...
like...
Sorry, finish, please.
No, yeah, and I think that just this is a little outside that sort of cultish content on Shudder that can inject some new life into it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of how you get things like the Colorado segment, which are basically like, oh, this refers to a thing that you probably like.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Which, I mean, like the golden arm, it cuts both ways. Like, is it familiar or is it derivative? Like,
right. I mean, I have to give props to the golden arm for just going for, I don't want to say camp. Were we just talking about this with friend of the show Paul when he was watching Darkman?
Right. Yeah. Because it was one of the things that at the time you don't realize what camp is, because everything is serious and silly to you, and you don't have any sense of what the difference is. Right.
Because like Darkman, like if you go back and watch Darkman, it's definitely like the kind of I don't know, you can't, I don't know that you can call it like a comic book movie, but kind of in that vein. But they do not fucking make comic book movies like that anymore.
No.
Where it's like positively operatic in its. But that's Sam Raimi. Like,
yeah, he goes for it, and if you're on board with it, then you get to enjoy the ride, and if you're not, then well, to hell with you, because you're a miserable human being who can't experience joy.
And that's kind of why, like, much later, Sam Raimi is so disappointing and leaden. It's like that. What was that? Oz the Great and Powerful, or whatever it was. You ever watch that?
No.
Oh God, it's like swimming through cement.
Oof. But yeah, I mean, even like I feel like if you watch Evil Dead at an impressionable age, you can be open to that kind of content. But if you aren't, then it's gonna remain a mystery to you, because you're watching it where it's like, I'm scared, but I'm laughing. Like, this is horrifying and monstrous and gory, but also silly.
Yeah.
You're like, but those two things aren't supposed to exist with each other, and you're like, well, guess what, bucko? Now they do.
Yeah, or like early Peter Jackson.
Right, yeah, same story. Where I think maybe because it isn't so purely one thing or the other, that maybe people can have a hard time with that. Or be like, oh, this horror movie is way too funny to be good horror. This comedy is way too scary to be good comedy. I'm like, I don't know.
Right. Or you just end up being like my dad, where like you watch Raimi's Spider-Man, you're like, well, it wasn't realistic.
Oh God. that was my problem with it too.
Thank God that superhero movies have evolved, and they've become like just incredibly self-serious and are like 3 hours long.
Right, yeah. Why did he Spider-Man, he doesn't even have 8 legs. How can you call that a spider,
But Doc Ock does.
Yeah, there you go. Huh, what are the odds?
Fixed it. But yeah, so I have to say, like, tonally, these stories they're all right.
Yeah, heard it here, folks.
Some of them are I don't know, like a little more.
Well, I'm clued into this stuff, so I think I enjoyed it more than you would as just like a normal person.
Right.
Like, I mean, I have like the cryptid coloring book that I got at like IndieCon or something.
Well, but this is the thing, because I can't even say like, ooh, this sucks. It's like this is creative people like working within the framework they were given and doing fine. Because I was
diverted. They did an excellent job.
I was diverted by all of these. It's a little much to watch these all in one day. I don't recommend that. I was
okay, fair enough.
Again, doing the opposite.
That's
of what
how I
was
watched
intended,
them, Jen, you filthy casual.
Initially.
Yeah.
But
you didn't watch one while taking a shit and then finish it while like waiting for pasta to boil.
Well,
and then start the other episode while you're like waiting at the DMV.
I mean, I kind of wanted to. Like, took my dog for a walk, and I kind of wanted to put on like the first episode, but I couldn't because I had to go back to where my Roku is connected to my AV setup. So I was obliged to watch these all like sitting at my desk.
That really invalidates our entire opinion on this then.
But I will give them this much, like it's not like sitting around like just like watching like vines go by like in a YouTube window. Like these stories move, like they have like
yeah, it isn't watching Holly J. Fox like lip syncing or playing with her dogs.
And even the ones that I really feel like they're the only like real dud for me was the Colorado one, which is called Red Rum, like Shining reference. But okay, like there was stuff that I could enjoy in that, and hey, it's the episodes are only 6 minutes long. You just wait it out and you go to the next one. I did like the ones that kind of didn't have a frame story. We've already mentioned the Iowa episode. The other one, which I kind of liked just for its conceit, was the Florida episode called Destino, which was shot almost entirely via quote unquote police body cams, which I thought was kind of a cool idea.
A cool idea, and it is, technically folklore.
God
Yeah,
damn it.
it is-
Now
yeah,
I'm becoming you. I'm like the one saying like, fucking folk horror.
Right. Yeah. Look, soon all will become me. I just a long enough timeline. But the thing that I liked about the Florida one, Destino, is that it is folk horror, but in an urban context.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything else has been like in the woods or like on the plains or, so rural America, like,
The mountains, the prairies,
Yeah.
the oceans, white with foam.
Right. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
No Purple Mountain's Majesty, though.
Right. Yeah. It's, it's like the series was made for you and me.
Oh man, I'm incredibly disappointed there wasn't a New Jersey episode.
Ugh. Look, let's just go there. You'll be horrified.
Yeah, or my home state, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
God, you could do so much with a New Mexico episode of this,
Right.
but we never got it.
Yeah, and that is the most infuriating thing about this. Like one season, like we aren't a fifth of the way through the 50 States of Fright. I'm just furious about that.
Or did we get
not only because like California didn't get one.
No, we didn't get one for California, and they were kind of biased towards like barring Florida, they were a little biased towards like more northern states because I mean, you want to talk horror, like just the tradition of like just gothic horror of the South. Like that
Yeah.
is that could have been like it would have been like falling into a delicious buttermilk pie.
Right, yeah, I got some horror for you. It's a story that starts about 400 years ago.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of an effort in a couple of these to toy with some slightly heavier themes, like in the Ball of Twine episode, which we've talked about. That we
Made by and starring Asians, so there. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
It's Kansas, but there are Asian people there. Like, how the fuck does that work?
Right,
And
yeah.
they do make a little bit of
spooky.
hay out of it because as soon as Ming-Na Wen shows up with her daughter, there's a local townsperson saying like, who are you? Where are you from?
Right.
And the friendly sheriff is asking her like, oh, but where are you really from? Which, if you have, ask any of your friends of color how they feel about that question when they're
no
American.
kidding. Right. Yeah, and I mean, and the only other time that we've seen an Asian in like flyover country is the guy on the date with Frances McDormand in Fargo.
Now, I think there was another Asian actor in the Minnesota episode, but I was amused by this because I believe there was a concerted effort to make all these actors look almost exactly the same because it's just 4 frat guys who eventually get killed.
Right, and already like zombies, I'm watching that and I'm like, all right, I'm not interested in it because I'm just like, oh, it's 4 assholes that I just wait to watch them get killed. Big fucking deal.
Yeah, and they do an okay job with somewhat distinguishing their personalities, and in fact, one of them is played by the guy who played Hugo. I think everyone's least favorite Martin Scorsese film. And it's fine, and they kind of have a little bit of you think it's going to go in the hackneyed direction of like, oh, Indian burial ground, but no, it's some kind of like Norse inspired mythology which seems to be local to this island. The episode called Grey Cloud Island.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put some in the MST through K swear jar. I mean, this is, these are your proud Viking ancestors.
Exactly.
Yeah, so why not? And it's the thing that even on the like the US remake of the UK series Ghosts, like they have a Viking as one of the ghosts because of course, before the revered historical figure Christopher Columbus discovered, quote unquote, America, Vikings found North America. So
Right.
yeah, there of course would be some history of that, and that was where the penny dropped on the fucking this is folk horror. God damn it.
We can't get away from it. This is now the folk horror podcast.
Right. And another interesting thing too, because you mentioned how they eschewed the Indian burial ground, which I think is wise of them, in the same way that you don't prank someone with like springy snakes because you're like, look, it's old hat,
right?
Like give me something new. So they did it in a way that is organic to these sort of cryptid weirdos like me, what they like. There is
Tim is actually a Sasquatch.
Right, yeah, no. There's it references Mel's Hole, which if you listen to the Skeptoid podcast, they did an episode on that. It's one of those like apocryphal bottomless pits.
Right.
This is the actual bottomless pit that, Mel's Hole purports to be.
You're listening to the Skeptoid recap podcast.
I'm Brian Dunning.
Yeah, so, this was another episode which was like, okay, it did have maybe my favorite bit in the entire truncated series, which was a short scene of a frat guy being completely confounded by a rotary phone. Because, of course, he's like, how the fuck do you dial this?
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember as a kid being like, I don't know how you work this thing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it is those funny little, bits of local color. That's great.
Yeah. So, okay. So that, that vaguely relates to Minnesota. The thing that I didn't get to mention about the Florida episode was, I had this impression as I was watching it, and I want to know if you agree with me.
Okay.
While I did enjoy it, and I did like the way that it was shot and the way it just kind of like got straight into it with some nice, snappy editing. There was a point when it started to feel like you were wandering around like, one of those Knott's Berry Farm haunted houses.
Which one?
The Florida one.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
That one gets a little loose in the middle.
Yes.
Where I'm just like, well, what's going on now?
Yeah. And, there's like
It might have been the body cam footage that might have been disorienting.
Yes.
But yeah, like there's a little
so.
part where I'm just like, shit, okay, where am I in the story again?
Yeah. And there was a point where I was like, wait, what just happened? And I was like, oh, I guess he got possessed and then she broke the spell. But, I don't know. Maybe I'm just like too much of our, maybe I'm just too much of a part of our short attention span society where, like, I can't even focus on a 6-minute video, but it was a little confusing.
A video of any length
they still managed
should
to get,
be able to hold your attention, is how it is assembled. Maybe, Jen, it is because, you do not understand culturally, the concepts of voodoo.
Maybe. What was this Santeria or voodoo or some... there were a lot of references to Cuban stuff.
Yeah, it's voodoo. I don't know.
Ropa vieja.
Sure, yeah. Although I don't know, she speaks Spanish, so whatever.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Florida, Miami, Cuban. There, end of story. Next episode.
Yeah, right. Next episode. Okay. The one that we've been holding off on because I think it's our favorite is almost there.
Yes. Which,
Did we address everything else we wanted to talk about? Because there's there's the Mississippi one where it's a little girl meets a Samara, and it is, they caution her. Oh, okay, Missouri. Well, anyway, like she just meets a Samara, and, then her family dies. She kills them.
Also, it's narrated by the cigarette smoking man from the X-Files.
Right. Well, that's good.
Yeah. Still working.
I do like that it is a metaphor where they kind of hammer it home where they're like, oh, this is built on an old lead mine. People used to mine lead here. And she's like, mommy, I want to go play with the lead. And it's like, no, it's dangerous. But the idea basically is that, okay, so they move into this house and it's haunted by this, creepy little girl, and the little girl kills them. But that is a metaphor for, if you live in this place that is poisoned with lead, it is not healthy for you. We just projected that onto a little ghost girl instead.
Right. But
the lead poison tracks. And I like that, even if the rest of the story is a bit of a trifle to me.
Yeah, I mean, it was a solid enough ending to the entire series. I don't know if they knew that they were ending or not, but that's the last state you get. I think that the parents in this were house flippers, so they definitely deserve to die.
Yeah, fair enough. I can totally agree with that.
Yeah.
So let's get back to almost there. We're almost there, but we didn't quite get to it yet.
Tim, we're putting the nooses around our necks.
Exactly. Yeah, the arc of any social media influencer.
Ugh, that's dark. But hey,
please.
but
look, another. It's a Hydra. Like 7 more will pop up in its place. You strike one down.
Have you been living like in a hype house or something, Tim? Your venom towards influencers seems like quite concentrated. Not saying that you're wrong, but
no, I mean I just because you mentioned that other people care about what we say.
Right. I mean, I don't really interact with influencers much because my Instagram time tends to be limited, as is my TikTok time. So, and I'm not really in the tea that makes you skinny demographic.
Okay.
Like I've at my age I've accepted my many bodily flaws and.
Ooh, yeah, which are myriad. I don't know, it's just making a joke at some dipshit's expense. So, hey, we're nearly almost there again.
Yeah.
Just look for the full recap in our next episode. Thanks, bye.
Well, this was the one that had me thinking, shit, I would watch this if it were a feature.
Yeah, this one, there was some work put into it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have the framing device. It has Ron Livingston, so, thumbs up.
It's got Vera Farmiga's little sister.
Yeah, Vera Farmiga the second. It is a woman, which already is unusual. No, it's important. It's important. It is. So it takes place in Iowa, and they have, the big wind turbines, but one of them... catches fire and malfunctions, and she's got to go up and fix it with the help of Ron Livingston. But she is, she's doing what is typically a man's job.
Mm-hmm. She's an engineer.
That is, right, yeah. She's she's like a lineman. She's like a service personnel.
Not a Wichita lineman.
No.
An Iowa lineman.
Right. So she's got to go up and do this thing. But, I mean, the point of it being a woman and in this particular job is because you see that to establish her character, she comes from, like, this Quaker background.
Yeah.
So already, she's kind of
Amish.
A person out of time. Yeah, Amish. So it's like, she's working with electricity, so already that's a big no-no. And, B, she isn't like a sister wife.
Yes.
Or whatever it is with, this weird upbringing that she has, where basically her mother tries to hang all of her kids, including herself.
Yeah,
but,
she's an Amish...
The little girl gets away.
Ah, fuck. I don't remember the reference.
Yeah, I don't either.
God damn it. That woman who
What?
killed 5 of her kids because her and her husband were fundamentalists and he wouldn't let her be medicated.
Right. Yeah, well... Yeah, I mean, all these have, like,
Andrea Yates. She's an Amish Andrea Yates.
Thank you. Yeah, she totally is. You're right, Jen. Yeah, and that's the great thing about all these. That's what I respond to about a lot of these, is that because they will seed each of these stories with something where it's like, yeah, I vaguely remember a thing like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it is, a woman killing all of her children or a legendary hole in the ground. You're like, oh, yeah, I heard something about
Tim's
that.
known a few legendary holes in the ground.
God, for real, I do a podcast with one.
So anyway, back to this bitch's story.
Right. So yeah, we don't get a framing device, but we do get, which is amazing for what was supposed to be short form content. We get character development.
Yes.
Yeah, we actually learn what this person's about.
Yeah.
Like what their background is and how it informs the kind of person they are now.
Like, she's gotten out and she's done all right for herself. She's got an advanced degree, but she's still afraid of heights.
Right, which sucks if you ever have to work with fucking windmills.
Right. Like, how tall are those fucking things?
Too tall. They're very tall.
Yeah, and this is a really well done story in like a very in a limited space, like the interior of a wind turbine.
Right.
Some good jump scares that have, meaning, because there's like a psychological terror behind them. There's like trauma kind of like looming up at you from the past, which is cool. And I think this is the single episode that did not have a downbeat ending. Right.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's not...
It could have gone either way just as easily.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a positive ending which feels earned. It's not like kind of like a bullshit happy ending. It lets you feel like kind of the triumph of the character in doing it. Like you're like, because, and of course, like there's nothing wrong with like ending a horror show or a movie like on a downbeat note. It's kind of the nature of horror. Life is always going to be horrible, but this was a nice little...
That's what I say every day.
This was a nice little storyline for the protagonist.
Yeah, and they do mess with that enough to keep it interesting, whether the protagonist makes it out or not, like how damaged they are from their ordeal, because she's kind of already been damaged. Like she has a number of phobias. Like she's afraid of heights. She her mother threw them all over a bridge to hang them in front of a train. So when she sees this bridge, like the bridge is sort of like, I don't know if I want to go anywhere near that bridge. Like she already is this kind of damaged individual that is overcoming that, which is, again, character development. Who would have thunk?
Yeah. In 6 minutes at a time.
Right. Yeah, so that it ends on an upbeat ending. You're like, yeah, that's you can support that because this character's kind of already gone through enough, rather than it being, for the most part, they're kind of stock characters who deal with something and they get in over their head and it gets the best of them. Your person who hasn't experienced this trauma before, and then they experience it and they're, killed or whatever at the end of it. She's already gone through that, and then she emerges stronger from it.
Yeah.
The other thing that I want to point out in this is that it has the most like perfect serendipitous shot in this entire series. Maybe in anything that I've seen in the last year. Because we had talked earlier, this character has this earlier trauma of, being thrown over a bridge to hang by her neck, and this train comes, along these railroad tracks, and it just obliterates all of her family and all the bodies that were hanging there. So it is her as a kid laying on these railroad tracks, staring at this train as it comes down. That is in the back of her mind as she is climbing this ladder, looking up and staring off, into the horizon of the single round light coming out of the open hatch of the top of the windmill, like a light on a train heading down the tracks at you. It is so sublime and perfect.
It's a nice shot.
It's a really cool shot. So you can see how this woman's trauma is informing her current state of mind and her point of view.
And this is by the Quiet Place guys, which I did not give a single shit about.
Right. Well, maybe it's not for everyone, but yeah, this it's a tight little story, and it ends on an upbeat of her, basically conquering her demons. She goes the distance. She overcomes her fear of heights by making it to the top of the turbine. She overcomes the fear of the bridge and deals with her past.
It's a good final girl story.
Yeah. Considering that she's the one and only girl in the story.
The most final girl.
Yeah.
The ultimate girl.
Yeah. I am the first and the final girl. I'm every woman, you might say.
The alpha and omega.
Right.
Of final girls. Yeah, so that's 9 States of Fright.
Yeah. Yeah, just 41 more to go.
So we didn't get a California one, but if you were to write a short form video that was about uniquely Californian horror, what do you think you would write about?
Hands down, no contest, the Santa Cruz mystery spot.
Ooh.
Yeah, you didn't think I was going to say that, did you?
No, because I was trying to think of what I would write about, and it would definitely be some, like, old Hollywood type shit. Like,
right.
Like William Desmond Taylor, Mary Miles Minter kind of thing, but with horror, so right. It's like, there's murder and supernatural shit.
Right.
Or, the kind of horror that you get from, like, Chinatown.
Okay.
Because there is an element of horror to Chinatown where it's just kind of like this generational outrage perpetuating itself. And then the lie that the California dream has kind of been built on.
Right. Yeah, there's that.
But I don't have a story.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I love, Santa Cruz Mystery Spot because it is iconic. It is a roadside attraction. Everyone knows what a mystery spot is, but it isn't clear what's mysterious about it. So that is the jumping off point for it's a mystery spot where it turns out it's actually way more mysterious and way more mind-bending than you would have initially thought. But it's one of those things that people drive around with the bumper sticker of it. Like, yeah, no big deal.
But you also got to be careful of all the goddamn vampires.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah. That's why I don't want to live in Santa Carla. Or
Good thing that town doesn't even exist.
Yeah, I know. Looks a lot like Santa Cruz, though.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, you do have an equal chance of being murdered there.
So anyway, look for Tim's next failed project, which will be a California state of horror.
Right. No, it'll be Normal Activity. That was the and is antithetical to everything I'd been doing up until that point. That was one thing where it's just like I do one and then I'm done. Like you never heard from either of us again after that.
Much like Mishka and Kizzy.
Right,
and
yeah.
Nacho the cat.
Nacho the cat. I keep telling you, he doesn't want to do it. People should watch that, though. It's great. Oh, wait, no, maybe they shouldn't because of all the slurs I use in it. Look, the character's a piece of shit, like, unrepentantly.
Yeah,
like,
and
that's
then
the joke.
In Tim's defense, I have to say, like, I had to direct him in those sequences because, like, he had a hard time getting himself in the mindset of, like, a total, like, frat guy piece of shit.
Yeah, how do you be a bigot?
Yeah, it's like, how do I be, like super homophobic? And, like,
right, yeah, how do you just, like, hate people you never met? I don't know.
Yeah.
Ask an influencer, I guess.
And, like, because of the upbringing that I came from, I was like, Tim, let me explain to you how to get.
Yeah, I got some literature for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I got a link, What Would Jesus Do? Emergency 411, Assignment Unexplained, Normal Activity, and a video of a dog letting out a long fart. Well, I think we're done.
I think we got some good stuff out of that.
That was 2 hours. Whew.
Right, yeah. I mean, this could have been 2 fucking episodes, but, you kind of can't talk about one without talking about the other. And the first half was just, fast forward through my diatribe. But yeah, you can watch a 10th of the 50 States of Fright on your Roku for free, assuming you have a Roku or an account with them. But yeah, I mean, I recommend it. I think Jen sort of recommends it, but it is, like I said, it is horror that is not as beholden to horror tropes as a lot of what you're going to find on Shudder. So on that, I think it succeeds.
Gaybutt.gif.